I'm good. Good. I'm excited. I know these IG lives can get a little complicated, so thank you for trying this with us and letting us have an opportunity to just meet you and learn more about your studio and what you've been up to. And first off, thanking you for supporting our publication. I'm sure you get a random email like, "Hey, a magazine," and you're probably like, "What?" But you were so kind and so generous, and so thank you so much for supporting our publication.
I love the name. I love the ethos. I loved your invitation, and it just felt really good and instinctually right. So I'm thrilled to be here.
Thank you. So I was reading on your page and on your website, you have had your studio for 18 years. And I'm so amazed and inspired, and I want to know what has it been like owning a studio for, I mean, you've seen so much change in the industry. What's it been like? I mean, that's a loaded question.
Write multiple books on what it's been like. And people have suggested that before. Write the movie, write the book, of the, I don't know, the world of yoga and how, in particular in Los Angeles, but I would say also in the world, how much it's changed just in these 18 years. If we think about how much life has changed in these 18 years, and yoga is not going to be immune to that at all. But my husband and I opened it in 2004, and really what was happening was we were actors, and we had made our living as actors, and we had a theater called Salvation Theater in Silver Lake. And I fell really deeply in love with yoga as a practice that was changing my experience as a human being, but also in my art and so forth. And it started to just pull me and draw me so much that somehow by, I don't know, hook or crook and divine happenstance, we ended up running and managing a studio. And at the time that we were managing that studio, there were a lot of changes happening in the yoga world. I became a teacher, of course, and dove really deep into that, started to step out of my acting life and world. And then this studio that we were running was becoming one of many that were being sort of gobbled up by a corporate enterprise that was very, I'll give it a generous word, passionate about taking small independent studios and turning them into something, more formulaic, not bad, but just different. So we ended up being in the middle of this really interesting time in 2004 that was, the mom and pop studio versus what they were calling Mick Yoga. And we were in the LA Times and the LA Weekly being interviewed about it. It was really a very intense and very fascinating time. So our answer to that, because it was coming right into our backyard and we were going to lose our studio or try to actually claim it, was to open Liberation Yoga and just do it the way that we wanted to do it at that time. And it was very, very warm and very, I want to say, connected to the spirit and the roots. There was nothing driving us but the yoga and the community and, the authenticity and genuineness of that world. We didn't have to answer to anything else. We had to work really, really hard. But it was a beautiful, beautiful, I mean, still to this day, but it was a beautiful time. It was a very, yoga hadn't been sort of maybe oversaturated yet, and scrambling to find your voice wasn't hard. You just kind of showed up and brought something good and pure and real, and people appreciated that. And I think there are good things that have happened over the years. For example, more yoga to more people will always be good. Whoever finds it, however they find it, whatever speaks to them, if it brings more light, peace, and love, it can't be wrong. Some of the things that I think get a little bit compromised are anything when it becomes so big, it starts to have its own internal issues and sort of, what's behind it and what really is yoga and what's calling itself yoga now. And so, but those are questions that come up for anything, in anything that achieves a certain level of notoriety, is going to face those questions. So we've seen it all. And, I'll tell you one thing that hasn't changed. We used to fold blankets and scrub floors, and we still well, my husband passed away last year, unexpectedly of heart condition. So it's just me now.
Yeah.
Single mom, single studio owner, but I'm still folding blankets. I'm still sweeping floors. Yeah, I'm still making the tea. Have incredible teachers and a phenomenally supportive community that I love with all my heart and soul, that have supported my daughter and I in Liberation. But it's definitely at the end of the day, you're picking the dust bunnies up in the corner and sending out the links.
Right. And is there something somewhat comforting that there's something that still has held all these years? Like you start and kind of end your day the same, even though everything in the middle has maybe changed a little bit, but you have that continuity of like opening the doors, cleaning the floors, closing the doors.
Absolutely.
Like there's something comforting.
Say that and recognize that, because I'll tell you, besides teaching and being with people and sharing their lives and being part of their exploration, my favorite thing is to putter around. And when COVID took that away largely for all of us in terms of being in space together that way, a huge piece of my heart was just kind of collapsed. And it was very difficult for me to even come to the studio. And Gary, my husband, bless his heart, came to water all of our plants and to upkeep. And for me, it was sort of like I imploded with it a little bit. And being back here and puttering around and making all the little special, places and pieces of it, and then having people come in and feel that energy is it's a blessing. It's divine, So yes, that is comforting. The continuity, like yoga itself, no matter what you call it or what you do with it, you're doing some positions on the mat, you're breathing, you're meditating, and it's the same thing it was 6,000 plus years ago. Yeah.
How has your personal practice changed over the years? I mean, definitely as we get older and as our life gets busier and less busier in COVID, have you personally had a change in the way you practice or how often you practice? What's it been like?
I practice 24/7 in my heart and mind, and in my body much less. So it's a constant upkeep, here. But physically, I've gone through a lot of different changes in my practice over the years. One of the beautiful things about it is, I used to really love a nice, solid, rigorous vinyasa flow. I came from the background of Jivamukti in New York, and then, some Ashtanga-based flow, and also gentle yoga and Vini. I teach all of it, meditation, the whole thing. But I used to need a lot to get to my yogic experience of feeling unified and whole and grounded and peaceful. And physically, it takes very little for me to get there now. To keep my body healthy, and in shape, and I mean really internally in shape is more my interest at this point. I do keep up a practice, of a few times, maybe 3 times a week on my own. But I teach around 20 classes a week, and I still demonstrate a lot. Which I don't necessarily suggest for my teacher trainees, to be demonstrating as much. But during the online Zoom time, I found that I had to demonstrate a lot. People are having a harder time without that 3-dimensional real life experience. So because of that, I mean, it's kind of a plus, that my passion and my vocation and my dharma, my life's path keeps me, active. But in terms of formal practice, I really think listening to my body and knowing my limits has been the biggest change, and not getting mixed up about what it means to be having a practice, and seeing it more holistically and how it feeds into my parenting and into my personal relationships and into how I eat and drink and just process, moment by moment the day. So it's definitely, I practice physically less on my mat than I used to, but I'm more connected to it than ever.
Wow. And that's all we could hope for, right? I mean, at this point, it's like, and I feel the same way. When I was much, much younger, it was the same. I needed that sweat. I needed that to feel that burn. And I don't know if it was just COVID or just getting older or both, but all of a sudden everything got so quiet. And I loved it. And I really craved that quiet and that grounding and comfort. And it was so, and I was like, am I just old?
No,
or am I
you're just wise.
like, I didn't know,
think
and I
it's
didn't
just
care.
wise, right? My
I
my daughter, you know, she's 13 and she meditates twice a day, and that came up through the healing of her heart from her dad. And
yeah.
she had a serious illness that was gut illness that was related to a bout with COVID. But the beautiful thing is it taught her the value at a very young age of slowing down. So I think it's wisdom at whatever age we come to it. And then when you have a really rigorous practice or you're in the mood for it, it feels tremendous to celebrate whatever that is for you, right? It might not be what it is for somebody else, but it feels so good to celebrate that and not have it as, I don't know, maybe an agenda or this kind of expectation goal where you never feel like you're keeping, you know, up enough. I mean, that pressure, we don't need that. We don't need that.
No. Have you noticed it in terms of what your community wants in terms of classes that the studio is offering? Has that changed as well over the years?
Times,
or has it stayed the same?
I mean, yes, overall, yes. And then throughout the years, different things. And I really love to kind of connect that sociologically, like what's happening politically, what's happening health-wise in the world, what's happening economically, and what are people needing based on those changes. And that's just kind of me noticing, you know. But right now, I really feel that Liberation, it's been, 18 years, and we had to move a few years ago. We were priced out of our gorgeous, beautiful, root-based, you know, studio that had won a lot of awards for its beauty and hominess and everything. But our new studio, which is now 3 years old, is really, really incredible and has an indoor garden instead of an outdoor garden. But because we opened it and then basically 8 or 9 months later, COVID happened, it was like then we were shut again. So it's just been fits and starts, you know, still folding blankets, but And now I think Liberation is kind of much like we all are coming to know itself again and see what it needs to serve the community. And I'm seeing a real diversity always, which is perfect in how I want it to be, you know, from whether it's age or cultural background or practice background, you know, novices to more seasoned yogis. We are very, very all over the place in a wonderful way with that. But I have noticed, generally speaking, that there's not as big a call for, you know, what hot yoga is really offering. I'm not getting a lot of people who really want that, like drive. They want a more reflective flow, a more, you know, definite strength building and flexibility, but kind of a deeper, thoughtful version of that. And then restorative, which we have, and I teach a monthly chakra restorative class too, which is really lovely. But they want something, I think, that gives what you were saying, some peace, some comfort, not moving maybe so fast all the time, but still feeling like you moved, you know. So that seems to be sort of, I guess that's it. That's what I'd say.
And it's interesting what you say, because there is sort of a sociological reflection always. I think you're right. It is kind of mirroring always what we're going through internally as a society. You know, we all went through this intense trauma of living through COVID, and we're all sort of going, and now with the political and the, like, everything's shifting again, and it always is kind of reflecting what people, you're right. It's fascinating how it does, and the barometer.
I love that about it, because yoga as a reflection of society, yoga seeks to serve, and yoga is for everybody. So if we're seeking to serve everybody, and flexibility is part of the practice and the offerings, to be able to kind of move with that, I think is a really beautiful synthesis and kind of symbiosis. I enjoyed that.
It was interesting for me when everything shut down, because I'm based in New York City, and I actually lived in LA for many years, and I absolutely love it. I went to graduate school at USC, and then I moved back to New York, and you know, during COVID, everything was so quiet and was so still, and it's just, we're sort of getting back into it now, but a lot of the studios I was talking to at the time, it's like they had to adjust their schedules with work from home. Like there were no more noon classes because people, so it was so interesting to me to be able to observe it through this separate lens that we were doing it. So it was like that everywhere, no matter where you were in the country, LA, New York.
And I think
it's
interesting a little time for people to come out and through and put the pieces together and figure out, what do I want to take from that time that was so beneficial and nourishing, and what am I excited to get back to, and how do those things blend together? And yoga being union, you know, I think it's like, how do I find unity?
Yeah. I did find that in a lot of people, like especially my friends, like who sort of dove back to how, as we say, was the normal before, and who sort of took back and tried to take a little bit of everything, and who was like, none of that worked for me. You know, I need something totally different. So everyone had such an interesting reaction to everything. And I think it's still, we're still sort of, I think, recuperating a little bit. Do you feel like your community is still going through
you know, and I mean, just specifically to Liberation, we had this kind of extra complication in understanding where that's at because of having survived the move, which was a huge deal and had to kind of suddenly happen quickly. And because Liberation is the kind of space that isn't sort of prefab, it like grows like the practice does. And our place looked like it had been there for, you know, 50 years more than just 15. So to come in and create a new space that had some of that history, luckily energetically you could feel it, and get it going and get our students to be able to find us and be comfortable coming to a new space, and then welcome the new neighborhood and whoever else might be there. And as that was just literally finding its groove, then the shutdown and then reopening, everything got so scattered again. You know, and most of our teachers have taught with us for all of 18 years. They are all seasoned. I mean, they're just not coming to this as of yesterday from, you know, a wonderful workshop. They are the real deals, and they're very, very special in that way, as I believe all teachers to be, but I have to be biased that these are some of the best teachers I can imagine. And I say that, you know, with great love for all of the teachers out there that have taught for us over the years that I see, you know, so missed because we got scattered, and people, you know, they open their own things and they do their own things, and I'm so happy for them. But the students scattered, the teachers scattered, the staff scatters, and then you're kind of trying to pull the pieces back in, and that process is ongoing. And I think, you know, students are also trying to find their rhythm, and they're trying to find out how to work partly from home and partly in person and still get yoga in, and they're sick of Zoom, but then Zoom's so convenient, but then they want to be at the studio, but they, you know, it's like this crazy puzzle of way too many pieces. But the earnestness, you know, and the intention is there. And I'm just, with my daughter and our teachers and our beautiful community and my dear friend Jenny Eakes, who helps me infinitely, and we would not even be doing this live right now if not for her, because I'm quite lost, I must say. Anyway, thank you, Jenny.
Thank you, Jenny.
And with you know, with all of those kind of pieces coming together, my main goal is to keep creating this beautiful energetic space, also keep maintaining our Zoom online, because I want to make sure that anybody who has moved away, because so many people moved away, you know, can still find us, and to keep brick and mortar, you know, alive and integrate it with this new world. I personally think space and being in proximity is essential to our mental and physical health. And I really take that seriously as part of my calling to be here. And I will, I say this with like love and peace, fight to the end to maintain that. And still offer and pull in, you know, I'm grateful to technology, but it's not the only thing. So so I do think it's going to be a process, and, you know, I hope to just continue to be able to push that broom, so to speak.
Well, and at least, I mean, I could ask you a million questions. I would love to chat all day with you, but there is one thing that I want to ask every person that I speak to. In those moments, you know, when you were fighting the fight and things were feeling dark and maybe more challenging than normal, what was your go-to? Well, the first thing that you always did that you were like, this is the thing, or the person or the thought or the spot that it was just the first thing you went to get you back on that path to your peace and your comfort?
Okay.
What was that?
That thing is
personally?
bringing tears to my eyes, so I'll be transparent. That thing is my husband, Gary. And I'll tell you the reason. Because he had and still has, because I speak to him daily spiritually, and he is doing the same thing from beyond that he was doing here for me. He had and has a way of cutting to the essence of the truth of the heart of things, and being able to be very solid and simple in what needs to happen and what's the right thing. And I would ask him yearly, probably, and especially during certain years, although we had some that were, smooth sailing, but
yeah. Tell me, you broke out. No, come back. You're like, this is the secret.
so,
You
oh
cut
my
out.
God. So, he always just knew right action, very sort of spiritually and practically. And I tend to float a little higher, and I'm very optimistic, but I'm more worried. And he would be seeming to be more of the darker energy, but not worried. And he always said, we have to go on. We have to do it. It's the right thing. We have to be here for them. And I, being the teacher, would be out in the front, and he would be, in yogic terms, Purusha Prakriti. He's like this steady, secure energy, and I was the one making, this energy. So still, I reach out and I say, and I say to all, guides and spirit and universe, and I ask for signs. And I get many, many signs. Oh, I mean, literal signs actually have popped up in my face. Go on. So, or I mean, there's so many I can't even think of them now. But honestly, the connection to source and love and spirit has been essential, and the connection to that through my husband living and now. In the other realm has been it. And the last little piece I do want to add to that is oftentimes when I would be up all night worrying about making the rent, or, getting the checks out to the teachers, or who needs what from us and how can I serve it, I would wake up and there would be an email or a text, or maybe now that I DM, a DM saying, liberation has saved my life, or I don't know what I would do without you. Thank you guys for what you do. And the timing of that, and I'd say, there it is. Okay, time to go.
Yeah. I love when that happens, and it's like you don't even have to be that tuned in, quite honestly, because sometimes it really
just
is right
have
in your
to
face.
remember to
like,
notice
okay.
it and not be too busy in something else to see it. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. But those moments, I agree, they're just, and to anyone that's ever listening or anyone that's ever with you, when they share those things, thank you to them.
Absolutely.
Thank you to them for just,
I'm
they
sure
might
you
not
feel
even think
that
it's a
starting
big deal,
a new
right?
enterprise.
Like, oh.
It's, the first 3 years of liberation. Oh my goodness, that was its own kind of energy. And yes, it's people listening, we all hear you, just like you hear the people who spur you on. And those things, honestly, I am sure that I am not the only one, and you're not the only one at times when I thought, are we supposed to pull the plug? And then that comes in. It's like an intervention.
Oh, yeah.
And can I say something to somebody that I see is here?
And that.
So Domi Ericato,
Yes,
Erica
absolutely.
Flores, my dear Erica Flores, she has been absolutely instrumental in liberation all of these years as an artist, as a social media person, as a friend, and she's just an incredible piece of liberation. And I see her there, and I just wanted to send her that. Hi, Matthew Arnold. I see you.
Thank you, Erica. Thank you to all the cheerleaders and the spirits and the guides and everyone. Thank you. And thank you, Christine. This has been a beautiful chat. And part of the reason I ask is exactly what you said. I also have moments where I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? And then when I hear people's stories and all the things that they go through, and then they keep going. And 18 years, I'm in awe, and congratulations on everything and everything you're doing for your community.
I appreciate
it's
you
amazing.
too. I wish you all the best, and I love this connection. And to everybody out there who's you know, putting good into the world and working hard and gets those moments where you're just not sure, you know, just feel my love and appreciation and support as well. And, you know, we have to just do what we think is the best thing that we can do these days and bring as much kindness to the world as we can.
Yeah.
We need it.
We need it. Christine from Liberation Yoga, thank you so much. We'll save this on our page and upload it to our website as well.
Thank you for having me. Have a beautiful day. You too.
Have a great
Bye-bye.
day.